accompany a little sibling or family member? Do you have a particular fondness for the medium of animation? Or maybe you find them nostalgic. I, as of recently, fall into the latter. As my high school years are coming to a close and I am now finding myself becoming an adult, one way I have chosen to cope with the inevitability of growing up is watching the cartoons I loved as a kid. These include Shrek, Kung Fu Panda, and pretty much every Disney movie you can think of. However, as I rewatch these movies with my all-knowing 18-year-old mind, I've started to pick up on some hidden nuances and themes that I didn't notice as a kid. This is what inspired the topic of my AP research project. For those of you who are not familiar with the class AP research, basically the whole purpose of the class is to pick one topic and conduct research on it. Beginning of senior year, my class began to draft their ideas. Topics range from studying how music affected the brain, how gut bacteria influences metabolism, and how the early college system affects student stress. I, however, inspired by my recent cartoon viewing spree, and a YouTube video I had watched titled Zootopia, Umasu, and the Failures of Race Allegory by Jack Saint, I decided that no matter what I did, I wanted to do a film analysis on the movie Zootopia. There are many, probably more sane directions I could have taken my project, but letting my humor guide me, I thought, what was the most ridiculous lens in which I could pair this film with? My first and most immediate thought was Marxism. I decided to make my project one in which I had to present and turn into College Board for a score, an exploration of the presence of Marxist ideology in the film Zootopia. It will not surprise you to hear that I was ridiculed and made fun of the entire year, and as funny as it was, it caused a lot of worry and doubt to grow in my mind. As I pitched my project to my peers and my teacher, I don't think anybody took it seriously. However, as I got further into my research, I not only proved to my teachers and my peers, but to myself that there was an actual validity to the question I was asking. Okay, so before I explain the process I used to answer this question, I thought I would explain the two main concepts I used. So first, we have the big and scary Marxism, which is created by the one and only Karl Marx, and described by Chris Barker, Associate Professor of Cultural Studies at the University of Wollongong, as an ideology that argues that culture and society are shaped by the economic model in place. Capitalism, Marxism argues, is the cause for the creation of classism and uses other societal structures to uphold itself. Capitalism, on the other hand, explained through a Marxist lens, and again described by Chris Barker, as a, quote, mode of production premised on the private ownership of the means of production, and aims to make a profit and does so by extracting surplus value from workers. In short, capitalism's main goal is to extract as much profit as possible. So first, in order to establish the presence of Marxist ideology in the movie, I had to first establish whether the city Zootopia functioned under a capitalistic economic model. And to do this, I outlined 4 characteristics: the presence of privately owned assets, the existence of social conflict, competition between businesses and products, and lastly, opportunity for advancement. So as I watched the movie, I just jotted down any references I felt embodied these characteristics. And these were my results. Now, in order to establish capitalism within the wonderful world of Zootopia, I had to find at least one reference to any of these characteristics. And as you can see, the criteria was more than fulfilled. The characteristic competition between business and products from the outline list really reinforced the conclusion that capitalism does exist within the film. A prime example of this is the existence of Zuber and the Tungertown limo service. I think we can all recognize that Zuber is a play on the name Uber and is supposed to represent this world's equivalent to it. Uber, if many aren't aware, actually does offer luxury and limo services. These two services, Zuber and Tungertown limo service, both exist within the same market, and therefore that makes them competitors. So now that we've established the presence of capitalism, we can now finally get to the heart of my project: establishing the presence of Marxist ideology within the film. To do this, I pretty much did the exact same thing I did for the capitalism section. I outlined the following characteristics: critique of capitalism, critique of and/or allusions to classism and classist structures, critique of and/or allusions to racism and racial structures, allusions to sexism or sexist structures, and lastly, references to the critiques of government / those in governmental positions. A lot of critiques, I know. And these were the results that are average. So I split the data collected. The first pie chart here shows the total runtime of scenes containing references to Marxist characteristics versus scenes not containing any references. The second pie chart here shows a breakdown of the average total types of references found. As you can see, the characteristic critique of and/or allusions to racism and racial structures takes up a total of 79.49% of the total references. We can see through this data how important this characteristic is to the core of the film right as it begins. The opening scene establishes to us, the audience, that Zootopia is founded on racial conflict. The scene, which is a play performed by children in an elementary school, including our main character, Judy Hopps, establishes the predator versus prey dynamic. Predators are seen as vicious and are described by Judy as having a biological urge to attack and act violently towards prey. And prey, on the other hand, are victimized and seen as meek or weaker. It is proven time and time again throughout the film that this foundation continues to fuel the conflict between predators and prey. We can just take a look at how our main characters are treated. Judy is a bunny and a prey. She is constantly being underestimated even after she proves herself capable, such as when she's given the job as leader maid despite being the top of her class at the police academy. Nick Wilde, a fox and a predator, on the other hand, is distrusted and is always perceived as a sly cheater. This is exemplified in the ice cream shop scene, in which an elephant-owned and ran ice cream shop refuses to sell him a jumbo pop and asks him to go to an ice cream shop, quote, on his side of town. This conflict parallels our real-world conflict between colored and non-colored people. And the criticism posed by this film and the characters as they attempt to jump over these obstacles this construct creates is simply that the species' structure is bad. At the end, both Nick and Judy become respected police officers, emphasizing the main theme of the movie as equality. The promotion of equality in the film, amongst all, can be viewed as signs of the presence of Marxist ideology within it. Looking at the data and evidence I just presented to you, you're probably asking yourself, wow, does Zootopia really contain Marxist ideology? And before any parents in the audience are starting to get concerned about their kids becoming commies, rest assured, the discussion does not end here. This example, when flipped on its head, can also be interpreted to promote capitalistic ideals. Okay, so to recap, the movie follows Judy Hopps, who dreams of becoming a police officer. Over the course of the film, she learns to not only overcome them, but recognize how she herself is contributing to the existence of these social structures. The character that plays Judy in the movie can also be interpreted as representing a physical embodiment of the American dream, which is the belief that if you work hard enough, you can achieve whatever you desire. As she overcomes these social barriers, she rises above her initial class status, that of being a bunny farmer. And this type of advancement directly aligns with the previous characteristic from a previous section, the opportunity for advancement characteristic from the capitalism section. And it's not even like this advancement is shown to be a bad thing. Towards the end of the movie, there's a ceremony for new officers, and over top there's a sentimental music in the back as Judy narrates saying, "Change starts with all of us," as she salutes Nick. There's no way that this scene is supposed to be interpreted as negative. But again, this poses major issues towards creation of a conclusion. These two interpretations, the promotion of equality, Marxism, and the promotion of advancing above your class, capitalism, are two sides of a very contradictory coin. As I tried to decipher all of this and come up with a reasonable conclusion, I felt I had hit a roadblock. I couldn't accurately or confidently answer my research question. And despite only having 2 weeks left to finish, I was debating whether I should redo my entire data collection process. I felt frustrated and upset. I spent the entire year dedicating myself to this project in order to prove my peers wrong, and no matter what I did, how I framed or looked at my data, my results kept coming up inconclusive. I expressed my concerns to my teacher, who told me there was basically no way in hell, in this short amount of time, that I was going to redo my data collection process. So that was a no-go. At the end, my research did end up coming out inconclusive, and the only conclusion I can accurately make based on my data is that there are some nuances of Marxist ideology within the film. As I look back at my very first day at AP Research, I remember a sentiment that my teacher shared with our class. Research is about results, not the kind of results that you get. And all the errors and missteps and uncertainty do not reflect the validity of the questions you are asking. Because even if you don't get the answer you want, your contribution is helping expand not only your own knowledge, but the knowledge of the world around us. So I implore you, ask the weird questions. Ask the questions no one wants to ask. Take it from me, those questions are 99% of the time the most interesting and rewarding to try to answer. Plus, you have the added bonus of being unique. And I mean, who doesn't love that? Questioning is how we understand and process the world around us. We owe our lives, our everyday, to the ability to question. Now, I would like to ask you one last thing. Will you join me in embracing the beauty and power that comes from asking